Hey everybody, I'm Isaac.
I'm Taylor.
And I'm Zach.
And we're Hanson.
And you're watching Noise 11.
Welcome to Noise 11. We are here with Isaac, Zach and Taylor. Hanson, you know them as Hanson. Welcome, boys.
Hello, thank you.
All right, before we get on to the new studio album, shout it out, let's just get the MMMBop question out of the way.
Is there only one?
Yeah, there's only one.
Huh, I didn't know. That there was officially just one.
There's an MMMBop question.
It sounded like, it sounded like,
The official.
Some sort of theory of relativity, Let's talk about the theory, the MMMBop.
I thought that you would have, you probably have a suite of them that you've been asked over the years.
No, it's only the one that you're about to ask.
Okay, so is it an albatross around your neck?
No, but that question is, because for some reason, it must be that every other band feels that way. I mean, we love that song. It's a song we wrote when we were kids. It's a song, it doesn't perfectly represent the band right now, but it's part of our story. It's part of who we are. It's not something that we've ever tried to really run away from.
Didn't you resent it at any point?
Well, not really. I mean, It would be like resenting your arm. You know what I mean? Damn you for being right.
I think, honestly, I hate to say it this way, but I think it actually says more about the people who are looking at us from the outside than it does about us. Yeah. Which is that people feel self-conscious about whether or not they do or do not like MMMBop.
Yeah.
Versus us,
I mean, It's a song that we wrote. It was the first song that introduced us to most fans. I mean, one of the biggest things that we think of when we're doing records and doing shows is the idea of being a music fan, And when you're a fan of somebody, you have a connection with their music. And if you go out there and want to hear a song that, was the first song you ever heard from somebody, and they treat it like, this is the song, then you kind of feel like, in a way, that they're sort of looking at you in a way that you don't respect. The fan. They're going, well, I like the song, so what's wrong with it? So
please tell me you play it first, and then you just...
No, we played it
because that would absolutely just clear the room. You got to play it first. Okay, now who's serious about us?
No, we're proud of it. We're proud of it. It's a song we wrote, when I was 10. I mean, what are most people doing at 10? So...
Well, what are most people doing at 10? I wasn't doing what you were doing at 10. Okay, you're up to... I read that this was the 9th studio album. That can't be right.
Album. It's not...
We've put out live albums and compilations, but it's actually the 5th studio album. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the last one, The Walk, was a little bit of a downer. This one's a lot more joyful and peppy.
Yeah, it is a little bit more peppy.
In
some form.
Still, I wouldn't say it was a down. I mean, the walk was highly influenced by a trip we took to Africa, and a lot of time, and kind of began a whole mission to engage people in a nonprofit to raise money for poverty relief.
In some weird way, almost by accident, because we were going into that record not necessarily thinking that was going to be the mission of the record, but we took a trip to Africa and ultimately it just kind of stuck on our head.
It changed the course of that.
We had to do something about the fact that we'd been there and felt like there were things we could do and positive ways that we could affect the situation for people.
HIV/AIDS, poverty relief, and getting people engaged in
and education
in that aspect of the condition in South Africa specifically. But anyway, Shout It Out is probably of all the records we've made, it's the most cohesive record. I mean, from the beginning to end, most of it was recorded kind of live off the floor, because the way we record a lot of the records these days is the way 1960s and 50s records were made, where you begin with this kind of basic core track. You got the bass, the drums, the guitar. In fact, a couple of even the lead vocals were done on the floor, and we finished the take and wow, that's great, done. So it has a feel to it, and we always have talked about kind of soul music, rock and roll, that kind of stuff, and that comes through, I think, more on this record than ever. Yeah,
I like this soul music, rock and roll, because you were saying you loved Otis Redding as much as you loved AC/DC. Is there an AC/DC song in your set?
We love AC/DC.
Yeah. High voltage. I'm convinced that I'm going to get my son playing guitar to High Voltage, because that's like one of those records that it's such a great record to learn to play guitar on, because so many of the songs are just very accessible as a beginning guitar player, but it's all about delivery. And then, of course, all of the great solos and all the and it's got a song called "She's Got Balls" on it. So I mean,
apparently they didn't have an anatomy course in high school, but
but you know,
Not the only song they wrote about balls too.
no, exactly.
she's got them. It's a good one.
She's got balls.
Anyway,
We love AC/DC.
so much attitude. It's
Yeah.
hard. It's hard not to love. I mean, obviously AC/DC, but they made a career out of playing 3 chords, like
And rock and
you're
roll.
you're just like, this is amazing.
Yeah, nobody does it better.
Yeah, did you want to simplify a bit on this album as well? Because you did go back to the gospel and soul and the classic
Yeah.
stuff and blues. I mean, AC/DC are effectively a
in
blues
general,
band.
Yep.
Yeah, they are effectively very much a blues band. Yeah.
In general, this record, like Tay was talking about, playing it off the floor, I think that was a big part of simplifying. When you choose to do all the pre-production and play it live together, you inherently take out some of the bells and whistles and focus a little more on the core parts. And I think one thing...
And making the parts really work together.
I think maybe one difference about the way we play these days versus years ago is you're playing a little more to find the smallest part, the core of the part, rather than trying to play as well as you can. At some point when you're learning to play an instrument, it's like, I just want to play the coolest thing or the best thing I can. And then at some point you realize, no, I just need to play really as little as I can while getting the message or the feeling across.
Well, and also there's sometimes, especially, and of course it depends from song to song, but there is also a tendency as a songwriter to, when you're not playing it in the band environment, to kind of start things off more from the songwriter point of view. Like, okay, I'm just going to play this acoustic guitar down or play this primary piano part down in this kind of I'm the band kind of way. But when you actually arrange it as the trio or as the full kind of 5-piece band or something like that.
Spaces.
Yeah, you have to leave space because
And this was the idea I read, that you were trying to write classic songs.
Well, I mean, you're never going in there to write records that you think will be only of a moment. You go in to write records that you think are good enough to still be good years down the line. I mean, you want people to listen back to a record and have it not be something that was, a hit at that year or whatever, and go back to it and still go, wow, that's a great record. I love this song. I mean, it's just, to us, that's really kind of a given, Try and write a record that lasts.
Yeah.
But you don't sit around going, now we're writing classics. Done. Wrote
Yeah,
a
yeah.
classic. You basically just
and
try and set a bar that's high,
Yeah.
An extension of that is maybe more the fact that I think we've never been a band, particularly of a time.
We're trendy.
So even when you listen to MMMBop and you compare it to what was hits around that time period, you've got on one side sort of grunge and Nirvana and maybe Silverchair and kind of that. It's over here, and then you've got on the other side the Spice Girls and Britney Spears and sort of Euro pop, and that record is some crazy amalgamation of sort of 50s and 60s, Jackson 5 and doo-wop records and a garage band. And
some drum loops underneath it.
Like we don't sound like Hootie and the Blowfish, but we also don't sound like, the Macarena, I don't think. I hope not.
It's somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. Well, so you're dropping names like in the Blowfish, things very of their time.
Yeah.
And you guys were invited and did Katy Perry's video.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Now, I thought, this is great, and I saw it and went, that's great. Oh, but there's Kenny G, and then I kind of thought, are you guys being picked as a joke for that? Was that the idea? Because it seemed like everyone else was picked for a joke.
Well, you know what? Katy Perry's video was meant to have people of a certain era.
Yeah.
And so, we first came out in that area, and she was depicting some kind of strange combination of 80s, 90s, something. But, honestly, it was one of those things you just didn't take that seriously. And as far as, overthinking it, and said, hey, this is awesome. Katy Perry's, blowing up, and she showed a genuine, interest in the band and said, of course, yeah.
And I saw she owes you one now, doesn't she?
I don't think we'd look at it that way.
Yeah.
But,
you've got to get her in as a love interest for a video.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
Maybe.
Who's love interest? Who gets her?
if we're spacemen at some point. She seems to be into the space kind of...
I think she's had some space themes.
The
Floating in space.
spandex.
Even the spandex feels kind of
blue,
spacey.
Blue colors, hair.
Yeah, if you've got 5 albums, you've got to do a concept record. Everyone else is doing one.
Yeah.
It's true.
It is
Our next one is going to be just She's Got Balls the concept record.
The documentary.
The documentary.
You could write a concept
Kind of
record
a
about-
hermaphrodite kind of documentary. Which
Wow.
Featuring
Really?
Lady Gaga.
yeah, it's just weird.
I don't feel you could do it, but you do write, these sort of romantic songs and songs about love. But you're all married. How do you? That must be a very different way of writing those sort of songs.
There's a really funny joke in there.
In some marriages, there is still
still
romance.
Oh God,
It's
no.
possible. It's hard to find.
It's very rare.
You know, when I'm not, doing errands and doing the honeydew list, about 1% of the
actually
time I've been
romance
married, there's some romance in there. It is a different perspective. I think you see that.
Usually it's about loss and heartbreak and lots of
well,
stuff. You guys don't have any
I
heartbreak.
think that
Also, in marriage, there is loss and heartbreak.
you've obviously never been married.
No.
That's
You know
a
what?
joke.
Like anything, this is the job of playing music. Anybody that's an artist of any kind, your job is to just to look around the world and whatever you sing and interpret it through your songs. So
Yeah.
every day there's heartbreak, there's
Yeah.
sadness, there's love, there's frustration, there's all the above.
I will
that's
say-
what comes through in the music. And being
Yeah.
married, I mean, it. Thankfully, we all have met amazing women. We've all had started families and stuff like that. But no one is immune to, all of everything that life brings.
I will say though that the songs, the love songs on this record are a little bit more. We're in a relationship and we're working through it. It's not so much like the. It's not so much like the "I see you from across the room," kind of like "I hope you love me someday."
So now it's like I see you across the dishes and come on.
It's like
That was actually the exact lyric.
Like for instance, if I were here, I would say to you, "I see you across the yacht."
Of course.
Because kind of, Ralph Lawrence, you stole his wardrobe.
Yeah. You're a storyteller. I get it. I get
It's
it.
kind of depicting.
Yeah. All right. Finally, I want to ask you about how you kind of feel as pioneers, because as I was looking back in your bits and pieces in the career sort of points, I feel like you were doing things many, many years ago that people are kind of just cottoning onto in the music industry now.
Yeah.
3 years ago, you did that playing whole albums each night on tour, which now every band is doing.
It does seem like that's happening more, yeah.
Yeah, and the cultivation of a fan base, I mean, that's something that every young band now is being told to do. It's like you have to go out and speak to your fan base and connect to them. You can't just rely on radio or something. You've got to actually interact.
Which is kind of
with your fan
ironic.
base.
You have to admit, it's kind of ironic that people are being told that. Because that's like, like when you're starting out as a band, that's like rule 101. You have to go out and play shows and like find fans.
The thing about it is, there are you're right. You're seeing a pattern of some of the things that I think are necessary to sustain a career.
Yeah.
As far as whether we...
Because you can't sustain a career only on
whether we've
album sales or
innovated,
downloads or things like that.
on those things. I don't know. I mean, I think there are a lot of things where we've been earlier, but it's really, to me, it's more
out of
about...
necessity, maybe?
It's more about actually looking at... It's sort of like a really... I would say, hopefully we're maybe in this category of being a better business owner than another. Just you own a business and you go, let's see.
And you're in touch with
I have a restaurant.
customers.
And what do I need to do? What do I actually need to do to make this successful? And I think a lot of the whole music business, I mean, so much of it has been everybody's looking out for their own little bubble. Nobody's actually looking at the whole. And if you actually step back, it's not rocket science. It's like, okay, we have the internet. How can we stay connected? I mean, when we left our label, started our own label, we had something really unique, which was we actually owned our relationship with our fans. And now labels are trying to grab the ownership of the record, of the merchandise and the tour and the website. But for us, we never gave that stuff away. Always wrote the songs, always owned the publishing. And so we could actually we could try the things that now have become more commonplace. Like, let's actually build a community-based website. Let's try and make this a global website. Let's not make it something that, let's actually kind of create a place for fans all over to have to connect with each other. Because, hey, we're not doing something all the time, night and day. So you have to find a way really to make it bigger than you. It's not just about the performance. It's about figuring out how to get people to ultimately to connect with each other and build something that is kind of almost like its own little ecosystem. It breathes and and
you can feel that with how fervent your fans are. They really feel connected to this group and an identity and a community about it, which I think a lot of fans don't.
We've tried to cultivate it as best as we can, You know, the reality that I guess cultivate is really even the wrong word. It's really because we actually care that they are there, and we actually want them to have a good experience and want to put, for lack of a better way to say it, put their passion first on some level or another when it comes to the shows and things like that.
You can only take so much credit for it, realistically.
Yeah.
In the end, you make choices that are the kind of choices you'd like to see as a fan. And I think that's all that we do. We go, I love this band or I love that band. What would I like to see them do? And those are the kind of things that we do because we go, that would be really cool. I want to go inside the studio. I want to see, Bono and Edge write a song. I want to see Tom Petty, play the whole, Wildflowers album. I want, let's do it.
We'll say one thing that is very true about our choice and the business sort of structure of what we've done. For almost 10 years, we've been our own label. And we've clearly not depended on radio. We haven't depended on we haven't even depended on major television and things like that. We really have depended on the idea that, of course, hits, TV, big, that's fantastic. You go for it all, you work on it. But ultimately, content, great content, especially now, lives on. And it continues to reach more and more people as you do it. And stuff like doing live streaming events. Like when we launched the last album, we did this 5-night series. We mentioned the live albums. We did every album in a row, so each night was an album. And on the 5th night was the premiere of the new record. What was, in that moment, we were only playing for 1,500, 1,000 people in that room. But by sharing it and live streaming it and owning it, we had hundreds, thousands of people watching, 100 countries watching. Even if it's 2 people in the random country, somewhere in Eastern Europe, or it's, 20 people in Korea, you're finding a way to say, you know what, we're kind of all in this moment together. And really, that's all music is. Music is just, it's just this intangible thing that connects to people. They just... nobody knows exactly where it is. You go to Africa and in the tribal, communities, they're still singing and dancing, even though they need water and food, but they still want to dance. So sometimes
they're dancing and singing to get water and food.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a whole other thing.
But it's just about figuring out a way to make a connection with people, and so that's you just keep trying to come up with new things that work.
I will say too, though, that also that event of doing the week-long kind of concert event where we're playing album after album was also part of what spawned us then going out and doing a tour the following year where we said, okay, here's every record.
We let people vote every night.
Every night, and then we'll play one of the record that wins. We'll play that record in its entirety, and then we'll play other stuff too. And it was almost kind of like a dare, because we were like, okay, well, we've worked all the records up. Now what can we do with this? The fans really enjoyed it.
We'll practice at that point.
Yeah, exactly. It was kind of, I have to say, it was kind of ballsy, and there were a few moments where you're like, oh God, I can't believe we did this.
There was definitely some oh shit moments.
but it was actually really fun, and by the end of the tour, it was actually really exciting because it was so eclectic what we were playing from night to night. So it's fun.
Oh, that sounds like it's all paying off. This is fantastic. Look, thank you again for coming back to Australia. Don't leave it for 7 years next time.
Yeah, we won't.
And yeah, it's great to see you guys back here.
Thank you very much. Thanks.